Get done. Joining us from Capitol Hill now are two power players, Republican Congressman Jeb Hensarling, who's a member of that deficit commission, and Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you with us. You know, as I sit back and watch from my armchair the give and take of American politics, I think maybe I speak for a lot of us in saying that it feels like I'm watching the Arabs and the Israelis. Lots of good intentions, but rarely does anything get done. I'd like to try to get to yes here today, Congressman Hensarling and Congressman Weiner, and ask you each to identify two things, and if you can't think of two, give me one thing where you think each of you could agree on important issues to the American public. Mr. Hensarling, you go first.
Oh, heck, you had to choose me first, where I can agree with Anthony here. Hopefully we can agree that the nation has to get off its present course of going bankrupt. I hope we can agree that we have to come up with a plan. Senator Simpson and Erskine Bowles have put forth a plan, and I salute it for a plan. There are elements of it I like, there's elements of it I can't stand, but at least it's a plan. I've co-sponsored Paul Ryan's Roadmap for America's Future, which is a plan that at least takes us off the road to national bankruptcy. I hope we could agree on that. I also hope we can agree going forward to change the process in the House, and one of the things that we intend to do as Republicans is treat our Democrat colleagues the way that we would want to be treated, and allowing the process to work. Part of what you heard in this last election, I think, is that the process was broken. They didn't like the process that led to the health care bill. We can debate the policy. Anthony and I have done that. We'll probably do it going forward. But there has to be greater accountability and transparency. I would hope those are two things we could agree on.
I don't mean to summarize, but emphasis on the process and how you get there. And number two, getting off what Congressman Hensarling calls the road to bankruptcy. Mr. Weiner, give me your two ideas where you could agree with Mr. Hensarling.
Well, let me just say that, Jeb is not one of these people who's just saying no to anything. This Ryan plan, which is something that would be taken very seriously, would do things that my constituents elected me to fight against: privatizing Social Security, turning Medicare into a voucher system. These are programs that help the middle class that would be eviscerated. We are not necessarily sent here that for bipartisanship to be an ends. It should be a means to doing good policies, but we're certainly going to stand up for the things that we value. Look, I can, from an urban area, very easily stand up and say us providing cash money payments to farmers in Brazil because we're subsidizing our cotton farmers makes no sense. The U.S. Institute of Peace, we're building a giant building for what essentially is a think tank. There are ways that we can find concurrence. I think he and I would both agree.
Representative Weiner, what about earmarks? And you, Representative Hensarling, there's a call for moratorium on earmarks. Would either one of you agree to that?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, not only agree with it, I helped lead the effort in the House to get the House Republicans to adopt the position.
Okay, so you're supportive of it. Representative Weiner, how about you? Would you sign up for that?
I'm not going to unilaterally disarm, but if that's the direction that the House goes, I'll go there. I think it's ironic on some level that my Republican friends who don't trust President Obama to do anything now say, take the money that would be spent in our district and you do it. We trust you to do it better. Mm-hmm. But, look, I think that there is area of agreement. What there is clearly, though, is we had a coalition of new Republicans get elected saying they're against health care reform, they're against financial regulations, and they say they're putting another additional $1 trillion of deficit on the table because they want to give tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires.
Well, if my friend would yield, I'd actually agree with him on a couple of things.
Let's get to one of the specifics in the deficit plan. The mortgage interest rate deduction. Congressman Hensarling, would you phase it out completely? Would you lower the threshold to $500,000? What would you do? And then, Congressman Weiner, you respond.
I think, number one, everything has to be on the table. And if you're talking about tax expenditures of roughly $1.1 trillion a year, it has to be on the table. Do I want to do it? No. Am I willing to do it? Yes.
Okay,
in order to save the nation from bankruptcy, where taxes will have to be doubled on the next generation. And when my friend Anthony rejects the Roadmap for America's Future, and I understand his points, but I would ask the gentleman, where's your plan? Where's your plan? Because the default position is to double taxes on the next generation to pay for government under current law.
Well, let me just say this about the mortgage tax, the mortgage interest deduction. It is the only, or maybe the singular tax break for middle-class people who want to buy a home. it's probably the last remaining thing that's spurring home sales and home production is that tax break. I would be very opposed to that. It's one that helps the middle class and probably does a lot more to create economic activity than a lot of others. But, it's we have to realize something here, that all of these things are choices. You say, well, how come there isn't consensus? There's not consensus because the American people are deeply divided on a lot of these things as well. People hate national health care until they reach 65, then they love it. So I think that there are things that we can certainly do, but it is indisputable that if you extend the Bush tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, you add money to the deficit. That's indisputible.
Tyler, I don't think we got to yes, Tyler.
We did get to yes. Gentlemen, I encourage you to
increases.
I encourage you to try.
Debate.
I encourage you to try to get to yes, and I appreciate the good spirit of the conversation. Congressman